Wouldn't it be wonderful if every person we cared about died peacefully and painlessly after living a long, healthy, and happy life? And wouldn't it be even more fabulous if all of us had only happy and loving feelings toward our family members who died and left us behind? That happens. It really and truly does. But most of the time, getting out of this life isn't quite that easy. And sometimes it's really messy. I believe that the relationship we have with a person when they are alive has a significant impact on how we go through the grieving process after they die. Now, there are times when a person's death is tragic because it is untimely or unexpected. And there are situations when death is a blessing because it comes at the end of a long-term illness and a lot of suffering. And there are times when people's response to someone's death is complicated because their relationship was difficult. For instance, one afternoon I ran into a friend in the grocery store who I hadn't seen in a long time. So we pulled our carts off to the side of the aisle and just had a little catch up. And when I asked her how she was doing, she said, "Well, I'm fine." She said, "But my dad just died." And of course I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And she said, "Actually, I'm relieved." And I said, "Oh, had he been sick for a long time?" And she said, "No, he was an alcoholic. And I'm relieved because I can finally stop trying to make that man love me." I was so sad for her. Another friend lost her mother after years and years of living with Alzheimer's, and I called to express my sympathy. And she said, "I'm not really grieving my mother's death. It was time. What I am grieving, though, is the loss of the mother that I never had." She went on to say, "I've been lucky to have a few older women in my life who mentored me, who really liked me and genuinely cared about me. Unfortunately, my mother was just not one of those women." Now that broke my heart. But it reminded me that sometimes after a person dies, we grieve the loss of who we wanted that person to be, rather than who they really were. And sometimes our grief is intensified because a person dies before a disagreement can be resolved. In one family that I know, the dad was really domineering and bellicose, and he had zero patience with people whose ideas and opinions differed from his own. So when his youngest son came home from his junior year in college and announced that he had dropped out of school to join the military, the dad went ballistic. He raged on and on about all of the money he had wasted on this kid's education and how he was throwing his life away and now he wasn't going to amount to anything. It was really a terrible row. And they both said awful, ugly things to one another. And the son stomped out of the house and he left for boot camp without saying goodbye. After he was deployed to Afghanistan, he got the news that his father had suffered a massive stroke. He lingered for a few days, but he never regained consciousness. So he died before he and his son had a chance to reconcile. Knowing that his dad was disappointed in him and still angry with him when he died created a huge gaping hole in the son's heart. And it's been several years, but from what I have observed, that hole is still as raw and painful as it was the day he left home. Now, my point in telling these stories is to remind you that relationships are challenging and that not every loved one is who we wish they could have been. So if you've had a troubled relationship with someone who hurt you, who didn't show up when you needed them, or never approved of you or your choices, I hope you can accept that it's not you that was not worthy of being loved by them. It's really because they were not capable of being who you needed them to be or wished they could have been. It's not your fault that they were not able to love you the way that you deserved and needed to be loved. So, if you've had a troubled relationship and you can't get to a place of peace about this on your own, please get some counseling, because you do not deserve to be burdened with the feeling that you're a bad person for not grieving the loss of someone who really wasn't a lovable loved one when they were alive.